Now, whenever we have systems or servers storing an asset or some particular data, those servers or system might have multiple vulnerabilities, right? Now, how do we prioritize those vulnerabilities? There should be some standard through which we can say which vulnerability is the most critical and which one is the least critical, right? That is where CVSS score comes into play. CVSS score stands for Common Vulnerability Scoring System. It is simply a scoring system which allows us to calculate the severity of a vulnerability, with 9 or 10 being the most critical and 0 or 1 being the vulnerability of least severity. Okay, and depending upon this score, we can prioritize which vulnerability needs to be fixed first and which needs to be fixed later on. So let's have a look at how CVSS score is calculated. So we have this CVSS score calculator and we have different metrics using which the CVSS score is calculated. Attack vector basically tells how or where the attacker needs to be in order to carry out this attack. Does he have to be in a different network or an adjacent network, or does he require some physical access to the computer? Attack complexity means how complex it is to exploit this vulnerability or carry out this particular attack. Privilege required means does the attacker require any privilege in order to carry out this attack? If no privileges are required, then the severity would obviously increase. If some privileges are required, then obviously severity will slightly decrease. User interaction means is there any user interaction which is required to exploit that vulnerability? Then we have scope. Scope means is the attacker able to affect or move on to other systems other than the system which contains the vulnerability itself. Okay. Then confidentiality means if this vulnerability is exploited, how much damage is caused to confidentiality. Same goes with integrity and same goes with availability. Now let's just randomly pick any value here. Ideally, you would need to understand a vulnerability first before you can calculate its score. So I've randomly chosen these things and we can see we have this 7.4 score, which is high. Okay, and here we have all the range through which we can basically put our vulnerability into a particular category of severity, and then depending upon that we can choose which vulnerability to prioritize for fixing.